So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
Now you mentioned cutting edge. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, like I said, we were aware of you guys back in the day. I every time I came here, I'd been to Bellwoods a handful of times maybe, and then I interviewed for the podcast. Unfortunately, Scott wasn't there. These blokes in Montreal, the Wild Shack, who are like some kind of like professional homebrewers in the sense. They do a lot of collaborations with like Sutton and Dunham and Spice Public and stuff. And we did a little episode of this thing we have called What's in My Cellar. And I was looking in their cellar. The dude on the podcast was wearing a Bellwoods hoodie. And I was like, okay. And in his cellar, he had the barn owl and like all this stuff, like a full shelf just of Bellwoods. And I was like, okay. And they were creaming over it. And they were the ones we were talking about hazy beers because we're obsessed. And they were telling me about like, oh, Jutsu was like the haziest thing you can get. I was like, okay. Yeah. So I came back. We come back every month. Yeah. And last month, what is it now? It's April, so it was in the end of March. We went to a show and we're around the corner. We're like, oh, let's go to Bellwoods. It was like a Sunday night. Like, cool. So we went, and I had Sea Star, Monogamy with the Idaho 7 and stuff, and I lost my fucking mind. And I was like, this is not what Bellwoods was.
Exactly.
And like we were saying to you earlier before off camera, that we've just come back from Vermont and we're very much obsessed with and into the hazy beers right now. And I was like, this is not like what it used to be. So we've noticed, and you could probably speak, this is what I want you to speak to, is that in Canada, I don't feel like I don't know if it's a fault of the breweries or the people, but I don't feel like people's palates have progressed to the level that they have in the States. Like, States are generally ahead of us, and even I'm from Australia, so even back there, people are just catching up, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can speak to that. Like, why are you guys taking the risk and making these type of beers? And
I mean, I think it's a classic like American Canadian relationship too. Like, we like
little brother, big brother type of thing.
Well, yeah, and like Americans like we were saying that recently, like their biggest exports are culture. Like that's the
it's true.
And that goes in beer as well. Like the trend, and there's so many breweries. There's so many great breweries. There's great breweries in Canada as well, but proportionately there aren't.
There's like 640 here and like 5,000 there.
Yeah, I mean just by numbers, you've got all, and a lot of the craft beer culture started in the States, and then it can evolve so quickly because you got just numbers, right? You got so many breweries, you got so many great breweries. There's all the minds on it, and it flows faster within the country, right?
Right.
And that culture, I feel like it eventually crosses the border. I mean, when we opened, I read an article about us recently and said that we were the first modern American-style brew pub in Toronto. I mean, whether or not you believe that, or whatever.
I agree.
But I know where they're coming from, and
what do they mean by that? Like when they say modern American, like it's in the cutting edge for
like a brew pub that would try to do good food, for example.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Not that, I mean, like there's great food at other brew pubs in Canada, so it's not a true statement, right? Even before we opened, so I don't necessarily agree with it, but we were trying to do like cutting edge beers and trying to keep up with that culture that's in the States, and that's we travel to the States all the time. And
is it modeled after an American style brew pub? Would you say? Like, was that the intention, or is that
we were inspired by? I mean, I'd say like our inspirations are definitely down there. Like when I would go to like I don't know anywhere, California, New York, even just going to Buffalo to get bottles of beer, and you have all these crazy IPAs, 7 years ago or whatever.
Pearl Street was it?
Yeah, that was pretty trash though.
I mean, I don't remember great.
Yeah, the venue was awesome.
I mean specifically just like getting bottles.
Sure.
But to have like 2 Hearted Ale for the first time back then,
great, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's like, holy shit, beer can be this aromatic, right?
Right. So you're traveling. I guess this is kind of answering part of the question. So you're actively traveling to all the places you said for inspiration. So if you went to a place like like we're always on about Vermont and stuff, and even like you said, like Other Half, is it? And places like that in New York or whatever. What made you feel that, like, was it just as a beer nerd you were like, yo, I want to make these?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's it's the same way you guys go to Vermont. You just go because what else do you want to do on vacation?